Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Tuesday Mortgage Coach call. Every Tuesday, 9 o'clock Pacific. I am here. We are here to deliver value. I'm bringing in top authors, top speakers, people that are just game changers that share the Mortgage Coach values. And I always love it when I get to bring in a superstar in our business. Today I'm going to be interviewing one of the best loan officers in the country. I know there's all these, who are the top 200, who's the top 60-second loan officer. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just about being one of the best of the best. So it's going to be a great top producer interview. I do want to remind everybody this call is recorded and this interview will be posted in our YouTube channel today. Also, I want to brag a little bit. Mortgage Coach is, I was really surprised at just how many of the country's best lenders Steve Marshall and Mortgage Executive Magazine posted the top 1%, the top 200, and the top 100 lenders. And, I am proud to say that we are serving 40% of the top 20 lenders in the country. We are powering 34% of the top 1% originators. We're topping 29% of the top 100 lenders. And when you look at Mortgage Coach and how many, just call it average lenders, we're only 5%. So our big takeaway as a company was that if someone is the best of the best or wants to be the best of the best, they're 8 times more likely to be on the Mortgage Coach team. So we've got a lot of amazing loan officers that are part of our family. Jay Crowell in Seattle, who helped 206 families last year. I've had on the call. It was awesome. The Gaylord Hansen team out of San Diego, which is a team of 3 powerhouse leaders, 537 families. One of my favorite interviews this year, and if you missed this interview, it was how I kicked off the year interviewing Wally Elderberry out of the Dallas market, who helped 328 families. And I am in the middle of scheduling Rick Shear out of the Boston market, who helped 458 families. So lots of awesomeness happening in Mortgage Coach. I do also want to share, this is a screenshot that was emailed to me, I think on Friday, by one of our Mortgage Coach professionals. And this was a review or a recommendation that was given to him through Yelp, where the client really called out the graphs and charts within Mortgage Coach within the Yelp review. And then literally over the weekend, I had Walt Brewer, a top loan officer, who sent me something that a client said, where the client actually said, I really appreciate the graphs and the intro video. It helped me. This was a situation where Walt was kind of fighting from behind. The competitive loan officer had better Yelp reviews, had a better rate, but the Mortgage Coach TCA helped push it across the finish line. So everybody, I hope you know how to get to the Mortgage Coach calendar. Today's call is going to be Steve Grossman. Steve, welcome to the call, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about this interview. I've known you for years. I mean, you're a top loan officer, not just in the country, but I always think of it from the East Coast. Again, I think we have more Mortgage Coach loan officers on the West Coast than the East Coast. So it's awesome to bring in a top loan officer from the East Coast in the Mortgage Coach community. I do want to remind everybody, because I've had a lot of people say, hey, how do I get to this call? If you go to our website, you go to calendar, we keep this updated as we go. So here's the call with Steve. And for all you managers on the call, if you want to post it on Facebook, LinkedIn, or you just want to send out an email or get a link, this is where you go. Or you want to post it on Twitter, every single one of our calls is updated and posted, and you can share it from there. So I just wanted to remind everybody, because I even had, I think it was Patrick from your team saying, hey, Dave, I want to post this out to our community. Guys, we're making it easy for you to do that. So Steve, let's start this top producer interview. I mean, obviously today, Stevens Magazine has you as number 61 among the top 200. All I know is you're one of the best. Let's talk about your Mortgage Coach, not your Mortgage Coach, but your mortgage why. Why are you a mortgage professional? If you want to get into your backstory of how you got here, that's fine. But at the end of the day, what is your mortgage why?
Sure, Dave. Thank you. First, like most people on this call, no one went to college or high school or trade school or business school or law school and said, I want to be a loan officer. Like many, I fell into the industry. I was in commercial mortgages from 88 to 91, and through a friend, I got into this business. And like many people, the first couple of years of the industry, stumble. I was at a small shop, didn't have a lot of direction, didn't have a godfather, no one really to tell me what to do. I kind of figured it out on my own after a number of years, and I think what I've shared with Dave over the years is that in really studying what the top loan officers in the country were doing in their practice, I took a lot of those ideas and copied them and just try to implement in my own practice. And I attribute a lot of my success was the old magazine Mortgage Originator, that I went ahead and I studied the top originators of the month and adapted that into my own practice. As far as my why, Dave, is you know this about me, is my memory is very interesting. Is I can't remember the players on a baseball team, but I remember a lot of information about the client. And when I speak to a client, I try to make them feel very important. I try to build a lot of confidence with them about me and my ability to get the job done. And I do this earlier on in the relationship, and it carries on to having multiple relationships with the client, and for them always keeping me top of the mind when they're referring, when a friend or family member needs a mortgage. And I think a lot of it comes to is what my why is my ability to generate a bond with the client earlier on, listen to what their needs are, and then really take control of the relationship while always giving the client the best information, best product that they need. And just knowing that they have the feeling that at the end of the day, all my recommendations and suggestions were always for their best interest, not for mine.
Yeah, well, in all the conversations I've ever had with you over the years at events, it's just very clear that you love people. You know, you have a heart that really sincerely is curious about who they are. It's not just, hey, I've got this list of questions that I'm going to ask people. You really are curious about people, and you love building friendships and relationships. At least that's been a takeaway that has just been glaringly obvious to me. So if you wouldn't mind just quick people what market you're in, a little bit about your mortgage practice so they get a feel for your platform.
Sure. I'm in northern New Jersey. We're about 20 miles west of Manhattan. My business is I follow the market. So if the purchase market is 60%, I'm 65%. If the refinance market is X, I'm usually around there too. So I'm no different than the rest of the world in this sense where on individuals that really, pursue the purchase business. I do mind my database and always make sure that I manage my clients' mortgage for life and could do constantly, refinance their mortgage when there's rate opportunities. As far as my product mix is, my average loan is around $500,000. I do a lot of conforming loans, high balance, and jumbo product, a mix of fixed and ARMs. I don't do a lot of government business. It's probably personally, if I closed 240 loans last year, we did have that brief streamlined period of last winter. I don't think I did 20 FHA loans. So my business tends to be all conventional jumbo business. Most of my clients put down 20%. I do about a fair piggybacks. My business is all referral based. I would say 30-40% of it comes from realtors. 10 to 20% comes from accountants, financial planners, stockbrokers, insurance individuals. But what I try to in each year is build my business where more and more of it comes from previous customer referrals.
Got it. And then you have a team, so why don't you kind of describe your platform? Because if you're doing 250 plus loans a year, that's way north of 10 transactions a month. How many assistants do you have? Just describe your role. And then I did invite your production assistant to the call. So let's talk about what Patrick's doing. But if you could just describe the team from your perspective first.
Sure. Where I have two hats at NJ Lenders. One, I'm an originator, and two, I'm one of the managing partners of the company. So I have my two immediate assistants is Patrick Cunningham. He would be he's really my right-hand man. He's my production partner. He really helps me run my business. I may, in 70% of the times, I speak to the client. I set up the transaction. May then do all the proposals. He'll do he'll take a lot of the mortgage applications and help manage the loan through the system. He's also my gatekeeper. If there's a problem, he'll jump in and take care of that. So he takes a lot off my plate and really helps me not on every single loan on a day-to-day basis, and Patrick works 24/7. My next assistant is a gentleman named Ali. Ali answers my phone, runs credit, does my pre-approvals. Ali discloses, orders appraisals. He orders conduct questionnaires, takes care of insurance, and he's really the front line because in many cases we have people call and he fields the call and he's gotten to know my clients really well, and he takes away a lot of unnecessary time that the client would have called me for things I don't have to get involved with. Ali also manages my CRM, and he manages all my post-closing marketing activity. In addition to that, I have 2 processors that work with me, and what we've done is we've split the processors up generally. One does purchases, one does refinances. And lastly, I have an individual, her name is Melissa. Melissa joined me recently. Melissa's really my chief of staff. Melissa helps me doing a lot of the global projects I do within my team, anything to do with my SEO, or she also helps a lot of the general communications, PR that I have to do as an owner of the company. So Melissa's also on my team that doesn't necessarily work on the mortgage aspect of our day-to-day activities, help me do some of my management activities that I have to do.
And just so people can get a feel, you're managing partner of NJ Lenders Corp. You know, how many loan officers within that organization, and just give us a feel for, you know, what that means.
We're a company's about 200 people. We have probably a little under 70 licensed loan officers, and in many sales organizations, 20 of those people does 80+% of our business. Last year, NJ Lenders, we closed approximately $1.5 billion.
So, I mean, wow! You know, you're one of the executives and partners in a $1.5 billion mortgage company, and you're doing monster production. So, folks, I mean, I don't know about you, but it's, you know, whatever Steve says, we should be listening. I mean, he's figured out how to scale, and he's figured out how to do a lot of personal volume. So, hey, Patrick, it's good to have you on the call. I want to, you know, we want to pull big ideas out of Steve, make sure we pull out the genius so that folks on the call can learn from him. But let's talk a little bit about team. You know, what do you see as your role, Patrick? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, first, Dave, I've been on these calls since probably about 2009. So actually being a participant is actually very interesting. You know, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for being the one that brought Mortgage Coach to Steve, you know, back in 2012. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. So with my role at Steve is just anybody that's looking to grow their business, and sitting alongside of Steve, who is very dynamic, is that in order to continue to grow and grow and grow, you need to be good at delegating and allowing people to take care of some of the tasks that you would normally do on a daily basis. So Steve's, you know, as we were speaking earlier, Steve's skill set, as an individual described it, as his skill set is shaking hands and kissing babies, and that's what he's good at doing. He's very comfortable doing it. As far as technology goes, I think he's pretty comfortable with me saying that that is not his skill set, but is more of my skill set. So for Steve to set up the transaction, have the dialogue with the clients, which happens a greater majority of the time, and then for me to then prepare the illustrations through the edge, walk them through the different products that are available to them, and then also explain the costs associated with the transaction. It takes a lot of time off of his plate and allows him to get to the next client.
Got it. So you're,
go ahead.
So you are the one that is creating the Mortgage Coach total cost analysis, as you know, to explain options, and then obviously handling a lot of transactional details once the client understands their option and is committed. And it sounds like you and Steve kind of, in terms of who's building the trust and the confidence, you're really kind of a hot potato that you're throwing back and forth, or is there a clear point of delineation? Steve does X, and then you do Y and Z. You know, if you could just speak to that.
If Steve's in the office, then there's typically a clear line of, you know, he's going to handle the initial phone call and get the gist of the information and then propose what we're looking to do for him. After that, then it's really a handoff to me, and then I take care of outlining the illustrations for what we're going to prepare for the clients and then walking them through it. If he's not here, then I handle really what Steve does when he's in the office, so he has the ability of being outside of the office.
Okay, good. So so everybody on this call, I mean, I think the table's been set. We're 15 minutes into this interview. You know who they are. You know what market they're in. I mean, I think we're going to pull a lot of big ideas and best practices out of this call. We did create enough bandwidth. While we've got questions that we're going to go through, there's going to be opportunities for the audience to ask questions. And I want to make this very organic. I don't want this just to be my interview. The more we can make this a virtual site visit for the mortgage coach community. We just got parachuted into Steve Foreman's office. We've got him and his production assistant on the call, our production partner. And obviously we're going to talk about, you know, how are they using Mortgage Coach and what are some best practices. But let's just get as much out of this call over the next 45 minutes that we can. I know when I was prepping for the call, like I always do, is I always do a Google search. You know, I type in the mortgage professionals Google search, and I put myself in the position of, let's just call it a digitally savvy borrower, and I, you know, let's see what comes up. And you know, well, you know, it seems like they've got their bases covered. You know, they got Twitter, they got LinkedIn, they got Facebook. You know, they've got a website. The thing that to me that kind of pulled out is interesting. They've got 84 pretty awesome reviews in Zillow. That was interesting to me. So Steve, I'll let you crack at this first. How intentional was that? And what, if any, value are you getting from the fact that, you know, you've got 84 reviews on Zillow?
Sure. Thanks, Dave. First, I'm actually embarrassed I only have 84 Zillow reviews. Considering the amount of business I do, I could do a better job in being more proactive in getting the reviews. I sometimes get lazy, but I don't go ahead and ask for them. I've learned that you can't use an automated system out there because there are pretty good systems that people use, at least in my marketplace. Every marketplace is different. I also find that just sending a general email saying, hey, thank you very much for the doing business with me, please give a Zillow review, send in a link. That doesn't work. What I find is either you have to tee them up on a phone call and say, hey, I'm going to send you a link, or when you do send an email, you have to be, hey, Dave, I hope, you know, your son's lacrosse game was really, you know, he did great last week at that tournament out in Long Island. You know, by the way, can you give me a Zillow review? You have to personalize it. So one, thank you for saying I have 84. I feel I should have 840. I just got to do a better job at that. What I found is, like many loan officers, we were asked to participate with realtors in doing co-marketing on Zillow. And I found if I'm going to co-market on Zillow, I have to make sure they have enough Zillow reviews. So it adds a little legitimacy to who I am. The second thing I found is that people do check us out, whether it's good or bad. I mean, they're going to Google your name and they're going to want to see. One of the things as a company is we don't have a lot of Yelp reviews, and just because we just don't. And some of the Yelp reviews, as a company that closed 4,000 transactions last year, I may only have 15 Yelp reviews, and some of them aren't so favorable. So what we've done is in situations where someone says, hey, I saw a Yelp review about you, we would then kind of turn the gun and say, hey, listen, I understand that. Please go to Zillow and look at all my reviews. So it adds credibility to you. You have to, everybody should be asking for these Zillow reviews, because whether you know it or not, your clients, especially the millennials, are going to be checking you out. And if they can't find you and you have no reviews, it almost makes it, you're really, what kind of a producer are you, or how accomplished are you in your profession that you have no reviews? In take Zillow, it's probably the largest search engine for people buying homes out there. So I think it's something that people have to focus on. There are other sites, Trulia, Google. What I find about Yelp is more for a company than an individual, and Yelp does have a regionalization. So I think this is something that people have to adapt within their practice. So it does help. It adds legitimacy. And once again, I think you got to focus on it and be committed to building these things.
So couple thoughts. You know, I have been studying, reviews. You know, to me, the biggest platforms for a mortgage professional is Zillow and Yelp. And I have interviewed some, specific loan officers where, you Google mortgage in a city, and typically when I go into cities, I Google and I see who's there. And to your point, Steve, by and large, it's companies, but I'm also seeing loan officers dominate a city, and by the way, they're crushing it. The loan officers that do own, they're in the top fold of mortgage within a specific large city, they're getting business. They're getting business. It's adding credibility. So there's no doubt reviews is something that every top loan officer and anybody who wants to be a career loan officer, you got to be intentional. I would ask, well, I've received some good questions. Thank you for those of you who have submitted them. If anybody on this call is crushing it with reviews, and one, you're pretty proud of your Zillow or Yelp, or if there's a third platform that you want to brag about, let me know, because I'm studying that and trying to bring back best practices to the mortgage coach community. So please share any success stories you have in building reviews, and who knows, I may even call you out here in the call and share that depending on where we go. So cool. So I think that was good, and kudos to you, because by the way, I interview a lot of top loan officers, and by the way, you might be embarrassed if that's a low number. I interview with top loan officers. You're doing pretty good. Now, I will say I have interviewed loan officers that are beating you in this category, and I've interviewed loan officers that are actually, it's a pillar of referrals. They're getting X number of loans from Zillow or Trillia per month. And by the way, it's not like one or two. I mean, I know loan officers that are closing 6 and 8 loans a month from either Zillow or Yelp, and it's because of their reviews, not because of their advertising dollars. It's because they've really focused on it as a channel to build credibility and a channel to drive business. My last question on this, and I do want to throw it to Patrick. Patrick, do you have anything to add to this? And 2, Patrick, do you think you guys are actually getting referrals because of your presence on Zillow or Trillia? Or Zillow or Yelp, excuse me.
Yeah, I do think we are, because as you guys are discussing, people are checking us out online. I mean, within the first 30 to 45 seconds that we're on the phone with somebody, we're searching to see who they are, where they actually work, to make sure that who we're talking to, we kind of get a feel of who they are. I mean, when you see a visual of somebody, it makes you a little bit more comfortable of talking to them, because it makes you feel as if you know them. But it's a great point of reference to go back and for someone to check to see what the experience has been with working with us. Steve's book of business is all referrals. Everybody that we work with is referred typically by somebody. Now that the company is moving in the direction to create a larger online presence, people are shopping, so they will go to any place that NJ Lenders comes up. And the reviews that Steve has on Zillow also help some of the older negative publicity that we had on Yelp. Fortunately, there was a review for both Steve and I right above it, so it made it very easy to then kind of overcome that initial objection, and then we ended up working with the client. So I do think it's very important.
Okay, good. So I want to start asking some questions that just have to do with teamwork and how you handle some critical, what I just call points in the process. And I'm going to frame this around an interview I did with Garth Graham from the Stratmore Group a couple weeks ago. I interviewed Garth, and in that, he was sharing best practices from surveys that they do at the Stratmore Group. Everything I'm going to talk about right now came from 66,000 completed surveys. And what they pulled out of that is that single point of contact matters. So I think the fact that you're a team and you're doing handoffs and you're maintaining an incredibly high borrower satisfaction rate, which by the way is obvious, in terms of, do you guys have great customer satisfaction? I mean, I think that's obvious from your reviews and obviously from your production level. So I want to make sure we kind of pull, how are you doing handoffs and addressing this? Also, within that conversation with Garth, we talked about status, and we talked about how, borrowers don't like to have to call in to find out what's going on with their loan. They want to work with a mortgage platform, a mortgage team that's proactively updating them. And then within that, we want to talk about checklists, call it the borrower checklist, because I don't know what you guys are doing, but whatever you're doing, you're doing it right. You're making good handoffs, you're proactively updating people, and you're doing a good borrower's needs analysis, because your customer satisfaction is off the hook and your production is among the best in the country. So look, Patrick, let's start with you. How are you guys doing handoffs so that from a borrower's perspective, they feel comfortable and confident going from Steve to you, or are they going back and forth? How are you guys addressing that? And then Steve, I'll give you a chance to answer the same.
What I'm actually going to do, Dave, is I'm going to have Steve actually start this off. I feel it's better if he initiates this, and then I'll take it on from there.
Let's do it, Steve.
So Dave, here's the deal. When we first started doing this, we were horrible. We got so many customer complaints, and I was trying to build a Ford assembly plant. I was really trying to do a lot of production with building a team, and really for me to do not less work, but I have a lot of responsibilities here, and I just wanted to do my portion of the mortgage transaction and then pass it on to my team. I would tell you it took us well over, Patrick has been with me for almost 4 years, and Ollie also. I've had other teams before this, but this is by far the best team I have, and I hope that this team will be with me until I retire from the mortgage profession, which is not going to be for a long time. It took us a long time to get the team in sync. And what we had to realize was that there was two things. First was a baton toss, is making sure we pass the baton and also built up the person we're passing the baton to. And the second thing is we had to make sure that we stayed in the lanes, because what we did for many years, and whether it's Patrick is a control freak or I am, is we were getting involved in everybody else's business. So what we tried to do now is just from the get-go is tee it up, let the customer knows who's going to be doing what. I'm very familiar with those statistics, Dave, and I wish we could have one point of contact. What we've done on the processing end, we try to minimize that. What we used to do is we would have a processor start to file and take it from getting the disclosures and into underwriting. Once the decision came out, somebody else would close it. We realized that system failed because we need, once it gets to the processing, let the processor speak to the customer, and Patrick and I and Ollie are out of the transaction. We're only here to advise on like fees and costs or real technical stuff. We may help get the condo questionnaire and set up the closing date, the insurance, but it was trials and tribulation because at first we had a lot of unhappy people, and I got a ton of complaints that the first thing is people would say is, you know what, I spoke to too many people within your organization. But I think we've done a lot better. So for those listening, that building a team is you really start out small with less members of the relay race, but make sure that the baton is tossed. You build up third party, that the person that's going to be handling your transaction is great. They're better at than I am. And that's in order to do the amount of volume that I do, to do it in a team and do it effectively without the customers getting all pissed off at you. But I just want to let you know, it did not come easy.
So by the way, folks, hopefully I hope everybody pulled a couple things away. You know, one, there's a tremendous amount of intentionality. You noticed a couple words, you know, there's a definite handoff. They're building up the person that they're handing off, and then they're staying in the lanes. So a couple takeaways. Also, I had a question come in saying, hey, Dave, how do I get access to the Stratmore group? So I actually just shared a link to this interview in chat. And again, you can also go to our, you know, I think I told at the beginning of the call, go to our YouTube page. You can either type in, you know, a search and look it up there. I just went down to, you know, the category that has all our interviews. It was one of my recent interviews, and I grabbed it. So folks, you now have access to that, and I just answered our first question from the audience. So Patrick, do you have anything different to say on that, or should we go on to the next piece of it? Anything you want to add to that?
No, I completely agree with him. It was a little bit difficult, and really a quick analogy that I'll just share on it is my fiance, you know, when she wants to go to a gynecologist, she understands that she wants to go to the best gynecologist, so she's going to have to wait in order to make that appointment, and she's also going to have to deal with the staff in order to do that. Steve's is very similar in the mortgage industry, so as long as it's explained to his clients that he has the same trust within us and vice versa as we pass the baton along the process, we haven't had any difficulty with that, and can definitely say that I'm more than comfortable with saying that that's not the rule, that one person for point of contact. It all depends on your faith in the people that work for you and the faith that you instill in the clients for the people that work for you. And we do a really good job of that.
Love it.
Where I've been very fortunate, Dave, is that because Patrick and I literally sit next to each other and Ollie, they we hear each other's conversations. A lot of people wouldn't like my environment because it's not quiet. It's not really conducive to thinking, but it works for us. But what we tend to do is we tend to really think and speak like each other. So we actually sound alike. A lot of clients mix us up, and what Patrick communicates to a client is he has learned the way I think just by sitting with me and training underneath me, and so has Ollie. So the clients are getting the same advice that I would give them if I was sitting here. So it's when you are building a team, make sure that you have to build a culture. You have to build people that have skill sets opposite of yours, but at the same have the same philosophic values, and really learn how you will handle a specific situation. Because the last thing you want is somebody on the team saying X and you saying Y.
Right, right. So by the way, folks, I just remembered an additional homework assignment if you really want to drill down on teams, an interview I did with Jeremy Forcier with two of his assistants, and it was all how to build and manage a team. And by the way, guys, I don't know if you guys have done this, but one of the things that I think it was Bia in that interview said she loves the Mortgage Coach TCA because when Jeremy makes the handoff, I know exactly, we all know on the team exactly what was presented to the client. Now, in Jeremy's case, not only does he always do the numbers, he always adds the video. So I would just kind of advocate that the Mortgage Coach total cost analysis, having that as part of the file, helps everybody be on the same sheet of music. You know, the customer clearly knows what's been presented, and both of the, you know, whether it's a production assistant and a lead loan officer, they all know what's been presented to the client because you have that TCA. And if there's a video, you know the paper and you know the narrative. So, and by the way, that is clearly called out. You know, when I asked Jeremy's two assistants, you know, what's your most important tool, Bia actually said the Mortgage Coach TCA, because it not only, you know, helps the customer know what they're doing, it helps the whole team with the handoff. So great call to listen to. One last call I want to recommend to everybody that you really want to drill down on teams is this call I did a couple years ago with Tim Brahim on his perfect process. I'm going to put that in chat too. Again, you know, my goal here on this call is to crush it. If you either have a team or you want to build a team, you know, this call is going to deliver a tremendous amount of value. So that has also been shared. So guys,
Tim Brahim is my coach, and Tim basically, I flew my entire team out to meet with Tim and Julie out to a workshop he had, and he really, he put us in place. He really just broke it down, and Tim is one of the smartest guys I know in the world, and he really taught me and taught my group, and that we just need to pass the baton better. That's where I learned that term from, or stay in lanes. I learned it from Tim, and to this day is when we are not going within our lanes, I'll have some of my processors say, I'm going to call Tim and yell at, you know, I'm going to tell on you because you're not behaving properly. So I learned my team management and my baton toss from Tim. So this is a worthwhile. Awesome. I highly recommend everybody listen to Tim's interview.
Yeah, and by the way, look at this. Here's the baton pass right here on the screen. This really is, it's one of, you know, all-time best interviews. And we went back, we loved this call so much that we actually edited it. You know, we took it from a 1-hour call down to something that was, you know, 26 minutes. Again, if you either have a team or you want to build a team, I think this interview is going to go down as one of the best all-time calls. If we can kind of close it out as good as the first half has been, guys. But there you have it. Check it out. So let's go. You know, we've got 25 minutes left, guys. I want to make sure we talk about the whole concept of as a team. How do we, you know, I don't necessarily want to spend 10 minutes on each topic, but I do want to make sure people know how you're handling the borrower checklist, because, you know, here at Mortgage Coach, we believe giving a family options and doing it in a way that's highly visual is one of the most important touch points. But we also know it's not the only important touch point. You know, when you meet with that borrower and you win trust, you ask questions, obviously that is, you know, critical. But also the borrower checklist is critical And we also know that loyalty doesn't start after the loan closes. It starts with how the loan closes. So the combination of mortgage options, the combination of the checklist, and the combination of updates are just essential. So who does the updates and what is your process, guys? Let's try to net that out in 5 minutes or less.
Patrick, you want to handle that?
Patrick, the baton has been passed.
Sure. So as far as the updates go, when we're in the origination process, and I'll just start as if we're using examples if Steve is actually here. After Steve has had the conversation with the client and has set the transaction, or at least the course that it's heading in, I'll then prepare the client at least with an illustration from Edge. Because I think one of the most important things initially, or at least as far as the beginning of the process, is to make sure they understand what they're applying for, what they have the options to apply for, and at the end of the day, what is it going to cost them? I'm not a big believer in having a conversation about APR, closing costs, settlement charges once they've received the lender estimate. The call that I prefer to have when they do receive the lender estimate is why is this different from a GFE the last time I applied for a mortgage? But I don't really want to have that discussion with them about closing costs and settlement charges. I think if we did our job and we did our job right, once they get the disclosures, they know what I'm applying for, what it's going to cost me, and what I need to do in order to get the loan closed as quick as possible. Steve and I really prepare, if you want to call it a client checklist, we call it a needs letter. We have the conversation with the clients. So we find out where the assets are coming from, where they're currently sitting, what type of income that they're currently earning, and where's that coming from, how are they filing it, to identify if we need anything from accountants. Do we need additional returns, business returns? Do we need to take a closer look at K-1s? Do we need to go through Schedule E's? Do we need to see if the business returns they're filing are in essence a form of like real estate holdings? So we have that conversation with the client first to then set the needs letter for them. I believe our process would in essence really fail if our processors were sending out a cookie cutter checklist of this is the paperwork you need to send, because it would create a lot of back and forth. And we experienced that in the past, and you quickly lose faith with the client on your ability to get the loan closed. So that was a big stepping stone for us. And then as far as our status updates go, is once the application has been taken.
Real quick, before we jump off this. So folks, Garth announced that a couple weeks ago. And then last week in my interview with Steve Harney, I spent some time just doing a recap on what I thought were the important mortgage coach takeaways. And, what I thought were the important takeaways from that, hour with Garth were the single point of contact, how important it is to make the borrower checklist personal and accurate, and then how much borrowers love proactive updates. So Garth and I put together this checklist of what makes a great handoff. I think you guys kind of added another topic here. Garth and I came up with it's about who, making sure that who's going to get us to doc, what exactly do we need. I think you just kind of hit home. It doesn't want to be overly formal, because I asked the mortgage coach community, hey, forward me your checklist. And I forwarded those to Garth, and then him and I huddled up, and we're like, so many of them, they weren't personal. They were just like, it was like an attorney wrote it. It was just this non-personal checklist. And the best checklists are the ones, and you just heard it from these guys. They're having a meeting. It's highly personal. Make sure they understand the why. When you're asking your borrower for something, the more they can understand why. And again, some borrowers want more why than others, but that's important. Make sure they understand how to get it to you. Upload it, secure email, bring it to the office. There's clear. And then again, it needs to be easy to read on mobile, because a lot of families are doing life on their mobile devices. And one of the things that, when Garth and I were reviewing the checklist, we had a lot of PDFs that it was like the family had to look at the email, then they had to click on a PDF, then they had to pinch and zoom it to read it. No, the easier it is, and it's to read on a mobile device, the better, because lots of time they're at their dinner table, they're going through things, and they need to be able to reference that on a mobile device. So these are some checklists. By the way, guys, before we go off that, anything you want to add to this? Because I just want to crush this touch point, since you guys obviously have crushed it with your success. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, Dave. What I find as being in the business for a while and managing, many loan officers is that loan officers think processors are mind readers, that they're Houdini, and they're not the one on the phone with the customer. As a job as a loan officer, we just can't ask like a doctor, how are you feeling? We have to really check their blood. We have to check everything on them. And you have to keep drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling down. And my market is I deal with a lot of self-employed people. I deal with a lot of base bonus people. I deal with a lot of people that own multiple properties or second homes. So there's a lot more information I have to gather. And whether it's a divorce decree or whether it may, whatever the piece of document is. But what we try to do on the front line is we try to ask as many questions, and we want to drill deep and deep and deep, and we want to let them know up front, because I think what irritates clients is that you don't ask enough questions. They send in a tax return to only realize, oh, wait, there's a partnership or there's another piece of real estate. So now you have to go ahead and ask them for a whole slew of information. So the expression goes is, if you got to chop off an arm, do you want it done 1 inch at a time or just lob it off all at once? And I feel you're better off just lobbing it off all at once and just asking for as much up front, like you said, Dave, and explain to them, why do we need their divorce decree? Or explain to them, why do we need copies of their real estate tax bill and insurance bill for the rental property where they don't escrow? So we try to be thorough, but equally as important, when we go to phase 2 and we request the documents through Ollie, he's my opener, and he discloses, the processor is getting a completed loan information sheet outlining the story, that they're getting a gift from their aunt in Tulsa, and they're going to be selling their timeshare in Key Biscayne to go ahead and come up with a down payment. You got to tell the story so the processor doesn't start re-asking the questions all over again, because the clients get really irritated. So dig deep, present it to your processor so they know the story, and you'll have less problems throughout the manufacturing of the loan.
Love it. So Patrick, go ahead and address the updates. How are you providing proactive updates to families?
So when we pass the baton along is how we pass along our initial updates. So after we've gone through the application, sent out the illustration, the next status update is just going to be the process has started and what to expect next, along with the needs letter. At that point, the clients are then going to get their next status update once they have submitted the paperwork that we've requested from them from our processors. Now, the processors that are on our team make a proactive call. Once the loan is started, we ask them to do that within 48 hours to 72 hours of receiving the notification that the file's been started, to introduce themselves, go over the documentation that we had asked for to see if there's any additional questions or reason for delays. Then after that, once the appraisal has been received along with all the supporting documentation, they're then notified that their file has been submitted to underwriting. The same proactive follow-up would then come once the file has been approved, letting them know that that your mortgage has been approved, these are the remaining conditions, and that you can start preparing yourself for closing. So there's not a ton of them. If the process goes really well and the clients are very cooperative, but that's typically the skeleton that we follow.
Got it. So good thing there, guys. If you have any questions.
One more question. Steve, what did you say about, what was that place, destination you were talking about?
I don't remember. I have a short memory. One of the things, Dave, you also got to manage the expectation is don't tell someone it's going to be a week when you know it's going to be 2 weeks. So we try to tee it up. We could do a better job by calling the people weekly, but if there's really nothing to tell them, we're not doing those outbound calls. Through our CRM right now, we're some more automated notification for status, and it's something we plan to implement in 2016. But if we let the people know that, hey, we're taking your loan and we're going to have it approved in 3 weeks, or underwriting's taking a week, we don't call them in between. We call them once the results are accomplished.
Good. Well, I think we have done a great job of talking. We know your market. We know where you guys are from. We know some of your best practices. Let's, get into the mortgage coach piece. We've got about 15 minutes left in the interview. Again, folks, feel free to keep the questions coming in. So far, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to ask most of these questions by the end of the call, and I can integrate them into this next part. So Patrick, you're the one that brought Mortgage Coach to Steve and his team. back in 2012, and you guys have created, almost 1,000 mortgage coach reports. What's your mortgage coach why? Why are you an advocate of mortgage coach, and why were you so passionate that this needs to become part of your process?
It's very simple to use and graphically pleasing to the consumer. Really the why is whenever you're going to do something, you want to understand exactly what it is that you're going to do and be able to see it in front of you. I believe a lot of us, especially with everything that's done on the internet now, everything is available in front of you. So if you're going to have a conversation with somebody over the phone and expect that they're going to move forward 90% of the time just based on what you told them over the phone, what the payment's going to be, what the closing costs are going to be, without wanting to see it, or then to raise questions that could change their decision on moving forward with you, I think it's just unreasonable. So the reason I started using this one is really this is the tool that kind of taught me how to go through that conversation with the client. Like I didn't learn explaining it through your typical good faith estimate when that was available. I learned how to explain it by these are the closing costs and settlement charges that are associated with the mortgage. I built the templates in Edge, which are very simple to do, and that's how I've been explaining closing costs and settlement charges and making my comparison since I've been in the industry. That's my why.
And how long does it take you to create a mortgage coach total cost analysis? One of these reports that you send to a customer, how much time does it take you to input it and create it?
For the most part, if it takes me any longer than 1.5 to 2 minutes, it's a long time.
So, I do these calls. Obviously, we want to bring great ideas and best practices to the community. But, our mission is that 2 million families a year get a mortgage coach total cost analysis. And we're almost halfway there. And so for everybody on this call, did you hear that? Less than 2 minutes. So now the first time you create a mortgage coach total cost analysis, it doesn't take you 2 minutes. It could take you 20 minutes. Your first one is the toughest. Every time, until you get to about 5 or 10, it gets easier. But most loan officers, by the time you've made 20 mortgage coach TCAs, it's under 5 minutes. Now 1 to 2 minutes, that's fast by everybody's standards. So you obviously have great keyboard skills and you do well with technology to get down under 5 minutes. But even loan officers that are using, fingers, 2 fingers to type can do it in 5 minutes or less. So so speed is not an issue. So Steve, what is your why? Because, obviously Patrick brought it, he evangelized it, you've now adopted it as a team, requirement, and, 80-90% of your families get a total cost analysis. What's your mortgage coach why at this point?
So Dave, at first, it took me a little while to drink the Kool-Aid. And then once I drank the mortgage coach Kool-Aid, I look back on it, and in due respect to people who don't use it, is I don't understand how loan officers quote rates. They'll email to the people. Sometimes they'll put it on Excel, which is probably not TRID compliant, put it on an Excel spreadsheet or just, text it to the person. Is that we are dealing with the individual's largest, probably one of the largest financial decisions they're making in their life. We are dealing with the largest amount of debt they're going to take in their life. And we need to present ourselves professionally. And we're almost like insulting the client if we just send them an email, oh, the rate's 3 7/8 on a 30-year fix and fees are $600. It's our job to present the client the entire story of the financial aspects of their loan, whether it's the rate, the payments, the closing costs, the prepaids, and show them their options. And then it's our job to get on the phone with that client and walk them through it from A to Z. To be honest with you, Dave, I don't know how to use the Edge. I don't know how to input everything. However, I know how to do the presentation. I know how to talk to the client, and I know how to explain to them the pros and cons, and I help them make the decision. But and I almost call them we're from the East Coast, so we may throw the F word out a little bit, but I call people an idiot if they're not using your system. Or some companies may have their own internal system or whatever it may be, because you have to do this. It's our job. And what we found, and I don't win all the loans. I have probably a greater percentage of capture on my referrals than the industry average. I have a pretty good capture. However, in many instances, and I told you, Dave, I remember you and I were at that conference in New Orleans, and I told you how many people compliment me on the Edge presentation through the mortgage coach, and I lose their business. They'll be like, you know what? Hey, sorry, Steve, I got a better rate, XYZ. I had to go with my brother-in-law, but just want to let you know you're really professional, and I really like the way you presented my options. And you know what? And I'll think of you in the future if anybody I know needs a mortgage. So to me, that's a compliment because I want to be perceived as the expert in my industry. And I want the people to think that nobody knows the mortgage business better than Steve Grossman. So if I want them to think that, I then have to present myself and the information I'm sending them in a very professional way. And if I do it in a half-ass way, you know what? They're going to think of me half-ass. So I am a true believer in this product. You have to do it. And the greatest thing is the customers look back on it because a lot of times, and I know, Craig Strength, he's a good friend of mine, and he's a big mortgage coach person. He taught me this, and it's true. A lot of times the person you're talking to is not the decision maker. And so you may talk to the gatherer of the data, but the ultimate decision maker be the other spouse, the parent who's giving the gift, the smart uncle, whoever it may be. So what we see, which is amazing, is at night at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock at night, how the clients constantly look at the proposal, because through the Edge, one of the greatest things is you're getting the email notification that the client looked at it, which is also during, of course, business hours is an opportunity for you to give the client a call and say, hey, I noticed you looked at it. So it's a tool that we really embedded in our practice, and it's a tool at this point we can't live without, and it's a tool that I think every loan officer should be using in order to present the different options to a client.
Wow. Well, that was nice. So mortgage coach members, that are on this call, I mean, here you have it. You have one of the nation's top mortgage professionals. And as I kicked off the entire call, it's not like we just have a couple of the nation's best loan officers on the mortgage coach team. We have 34% of the top 1%. We have, over 60 of the top 200 loan officers in America are using mortgage coach to present to families. So, Steve, you're the one who's having the borrower conversation and presenting it. Patrick, you're the one that is creating it. You guys have a high volume, high performance.
Patrick does know. I conceptually talk to him, Dave. I'm like, I talk to the client. I'll say, hey, listen, we could do an 80-10-10. We could do PMI. We could do financed MI. But, Patrick's going to send a presentation. Patrick's going to go over it with you. I just talk to them at 40,000 feet up and letting them know what their options are. But I find my time is not best suited in spending 45 minutes or an hour with a client going through it. I'm better off in getting that phone to ring, getting the hook, setting the hook, getting the client to work with us, then let Patrick work with the client to decide what's the best product or program for them. A lot of times they may circle back to me just to hear my opinion or to give that validation that what they determine with Patrick is the right way to go. And I may agree with it or may disagree. I typically do agree, but he's doing all the work. All I'm doing is I'm just teeing it up. I get on the Sometimes if the people want to speak to me, I then have to open up the Edge. Patrick educates me on what he spoke to them about. I look at it, and we then go ahead and I take the call, and I help just try to close the transaction.
Got it. So that really helps. So for anybody that's on the call, that you have a team, I hope this was valuable. Again, and by the way, I'm not here to present this is the way to do it. Every team has different dynamics where the lead loan officer has different passions, different skills. In Jeremy Forcier's team, he creates every TCA, and he's passionate about that. He can also do it in under 2 minutes. So different teams do it different ways, but this works. So Patrick, one more best practice I want to pull out. And guys, we're at 6 minutes left in the call, so let's try to net this out in the next couple minutes, and then I want to have some closing thoughts. But Patrick, how often are you using the live feature where you're actually, the clients clicked on the link, and you're walking them through and you're having an interactive conversation where you're updating mortgage coach? How often does that happen?
I try to do it with everybody, to be quite honest with you. If it works out to be maybe 70% of the clients that I send it out to, I feel that's pretty accurate, but I'd prefer to do it with every one of them. One of the nicest things about the way that you guys had set this up is it creates, I'm not an internet guy, but it creates a web page which I have the ability to immediately manipulate with being on the phone with the client. So there's no go-to-meeting setup. There's no lengthy process to download, enter a user code. You simply get an email or text. You click on the link. It opens it up, and right then and there, I'm able to manipulate it and highlight the points that I'm trying to get across when I'm talking to the client. It really just doesn't get any easier than that, and everybody cares about their time, so the more time it takes for somebody to be able to try and do something that you're looking for them to do, the less likely they are. But when customers, and I will push it and be very persistent about it, just open it up really quick. It'll take us 2 or 3 minutes to go through this. I just want to make sure that you're aware of what's going to be coming out to you when you receive your initial disclosures. Let's have this conversation today. You're applying for a mortgage. I don't want you to apply for the mortgage and then take out the mortgage and make the payments for the next 360 months because you like us. I want you to do it because we're giving you the best deal. You see that you're getting the best deal. You know what you're applying for. You know what it's going to cost. But one thing I just want to add real quick, just as it relates to Steve, because he had mentioned it, and if a lot of the loan officers that are on the call didn't catch on to this, any of the institutions that any of us work for are not always going to have the best rate for a product every single day of the week. But the one thing that we always have control over, which Steve does, and I've learned from him since I've been here, which is invaluable to learning it for one, and for two, seeing it being done, is you can't control that, but you can control giving great advice. And 10 times out of 10 times, that's what Steve is doing, and that is one of the things that I see making him be so successful is giving that advice. So the focus on always having the best rate is not always going to win the business, but referrals come back to us or come back to Steve 8 out of 9 times, specifically for the fact that he gave them the best advice.
Love that.
Tell you, but I have an amazing stat. I'm going to track it. Is I get a lot of business from people I lost the initial loan to, whether I get the refinance or I get referrals. So, and it just comes down to, I think, our level of professionalism, and utilizing a tool like the mortgage coach just really helps sell that point. And but I have so many clients that I end up doing their refis where I never did their mortgage in the get-go. And what we do, too, is using our CRM and our marketing tools is we stay in touch with these people, whether we get them or not, because we want to always stay top of mind and letting them know that we're here and we're here to stay and we're always going to be here for their mortgage needs for them and their families and friends.
Well, you guys absolutely crush it. And by the way, I just pushed another mortgage coach interview I did with Craig Strent, who we talked about here. I interviewed Craig a few months ago, and he literally drives over 90% of his families through a mortgage coach live experience. He provided some highlights with how he did that, and I have posted that. But again, another best practice. So guys, super grateful for the time that you have spent. I want to remind everybody on this call that every single Wednesday, that means tomorrow at 11 o'clock Pacific, we're doing a Mortgage Coach University call. So, remind everybody, if you want to sign up for that, it's pretty simple. You can go to our calendar. You can click on Mortgage Coach University, or excuse me, Mortgage Mobile Wednesdays. I'm actually going to post this right now if you want to sign up for tomorrow's Mortgage Coach Wednesday course. I have actually just posted that in chat, and you guys know how to do that. So make sure you check that out. Steve, I'm going to give you the final thoughts as we wrap up this call. Any last takeaways you want to share with the mortgage coach community? Just key concepts that you think are important for people to know. We've got 2 minutes left. And by the way, not that I want to lead you, because I want you to answer it however you want, but let's also realize that a lot of loan officers on this call don't have a team. They are doing it all. But if you could speak to that, great. But what are your closing thoughts as we wrap up this call?
No one started out with a team. You don't start at the top. You have to start somewhere. So the one thing I truly believe is don't invest in the stock market, invest in yourself. And when a lot of loan officers say, when I do 5 loans a month or 7 or 10 loans a month, or when I make $5,000 or $20,000 a month, I'll then go ahead and hire a team. I'll then go ahead and spend the money on the mortgage coach or something else. You have to invest in yourself day one. And if you invest in yourself, what happens with our business is it's not tangible. It's not like if you're going to put up $1 million, you can open up like McDonald's and you know you're going to make $200,000. In this business, invest in yourself and improve results. The other thing is stay focused. And the grass is not greener on the other side. But I also find a lot of loan officers, they think if they switch companies, it's going to be better or it's going to be easier. At the end of the day, we have to put our pants on and we have to originate loans, or we're going to have to deal with the BS of originating loans. Because I truly believe one of my successes that I've been at one place for over 20 years. And that basically adds a lot of stability. So when people think of me, they think of NJ Lenders, and they think that, hey, I'm the guy that's always there. You know, I'm the guy at the end of that phone call. They know where to get me. So really, just don't job jump a lot. Invest in your business. Also, invest in the tools. Invest in the mortgage coach. You have to have a CRM. Market your clients. Stay in touch with your clients. Call your clients, because if you don't stay in touch with them, after 3 years, they're going to forget your name. You have to make sure that if someone thinks like they need a mortgage, it's the same way if I ask them who's their dentist, that Dr. Smith is going to come to their head. It has to be Steve Grossman, the mortgage person. So just stay in touch with them. Invest in yourself, invest in systems, just stay the course, and do the right thing. Customer's always right, and in the end, it's the cream rises to the top, and you're going to have a nice, successful practice.
Love it. So awesome call, gentlemen. Really appreciate your time. If you're on this call, let us know what you thought of today's call on a scale of good, great. You know, let us know if we wowed you, what your takeaways were. And if you're a guest on this call and you want to learn more about Mortgage Coach, click the last option. I would like a demo. So super grateful for the time that you took to share. Patrick, any 15 minutes or 15 seconds of last thoughts on your side? Any advice for other production partners or any advice for the community?
Not so much just specifically for production partners, but just for loan officers, is that you want to be confident in your abilities to do what you're looking to do and being an originator. This gives you that ability to be confident in what you're doing. So to not utilize a tool like this that's quick, easy, efficient, and easy for your client to manipulate or not manipulate, but to read and understand, is really you're kind of creating a handicap for yourself that's unnecessary. Waiting for a disclosure package to go out is really unnecessary. Use these illustrations, have these calls up front. It'll make the process that much easier for you. And you know, really, that's it. I can't really imagine using anything else. This is all I've really ever used. I've seen a lot of what's out there. You know, we're not financial advisors. We're not accountants. This gives us enough information to be dangerous, and then to push them to talk to those professionals for additional questions. But utilize it. It's very easy to use. It takes maybe a half an hour to an hour to build up your templates. After that, you can create the presentations just as quickly and easily as I do.
All right, gentlemen. Well, hey, thank you very much for your time, everybody. We'll see you again next Tuesday. I'm bringing in a first-time guest, Brian Johnson. His book reviews are unbelievable. You know, Google this guy. He is a very impressive teacher that we're bringing into the Mortgage Coach for the first time, and we're going to be talking about Habits 101 and really how to build better success habits, how to change bad habits. We'll see you next week. Thanks again, guys. This call is a wrap. Bye now.
Dave.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Steve.